Coming up, the Michael McLeod situation gets an unfortunate update that will impact the Devils on the ice, but more importantly, have ramifications away from hockey. All right, welcome into the Devil's Puck Luck podcast, where we are your host over here, Adam Armbrecht, and over there, Danny McDonough. Unfortunately, rather than just being able to talk about the Devils on the ice, we have to talk about a larger issue away from the game that involves multiple New Jersey Devils. Last week, the incident was reported dating back to 2018, and the alleged sexual assault charges filed against potentially 5 individuals connected to the Canadian World Juniors hockey team. Now, that was settled out of court by the current counsel at the time. The case was closed by the police department at the time. However, as we know, going back to last week, 5 players across the NHL were asked to surrender to London, Ontario in connection to it, including Michael McLeod and also Kyle Foote of the New Jersey Devils. Representing McLeod in this matter is David Humphrey and Seth Weinstein, who came out with the statement as reported by Christian Arnold of the New York Post. We can now confirm that more than 5.5 years after the alleged victim's initial complaint to police, the London Police Service have charged Mike McLeod with sexual assault, Humphrey and Weinstein said in their statement. Mr. McLeod denies any criminal wrongdoing. He will be pleading not guilty and will vigorously defend the case. None of the evidence has been presented, let alone tested in court. We ask that the public respect Mr. McLeod's privacy and his family's privacy. Because the matter is now before the court, we will not comment further at this time. We'll just pause here for a second, Danny. I don't want to say obviously everyone is aware of this. There were the alleged charges stemming back, as I said, to 2018. Let's just point stop. If any of these things are proven to be true, if any of these members of the Canadian World Team Juniors Club are found to be guilty, it's obviously reprehensible. They should be charged. They should serve jail time, whatever ends up coming out in court. But at a minimum, it's just a disturbing thing to have to take a step away from talking about Devils hockey, NHL hockey, and one that you have to. You have to have the conversation about what's going on away from the team right now.
Yeah, you step away from being an NHL fan, a Devils fan, and you look at the whole situation in totality. There's obviously been a lot of rumbling going on about, the hockey team in Canada. It's disgusting, right? It's a disgusting situation. It's so extremely unfortunate. Obviously, we all have the same feeling. If there's any involvement with these players, good riddance. We don't want them anywhere near the Devils. We don't want them anywhere near the NHL. It's just a terrible situation. Adam, we have to let the justice system do its thing. I don't think the trial is going to happen for a couple of years, or some reports that are coming out. And this is going to be up to, I'm assuming, the NHLPA, which is going to obviously talk to the NHL. And I'm not sure if their contracts are going to be terminated immediately. Yeah. But it's just a situation that is absolutely disgusting. It's horrible. And it's a stain on hockey. It really is.
And obviously, as I mentioned there, all 5 players were part of the Canadian 2018 World Junior Hockey Championship that won gold in that year. London police are expected to hold a news conference on February 5th. So we will get an update connected to this specifically, probably elaborating on what the charges currently are. Prior to that, though, as all these players were granted leaves of absence before going to London, Ontario from their respective teams. And you had every organization, the New Jersey Devils said we have no statement at this time, waiting for the NHL to come out with their initial response to it. But then all the way over to the Calgary Flames, who initially reported it as mental health, and then finding out of the charges, they came out first and foremost and said, we were unaware that our player was going to be connected to this. Now that he is, it obviously changes the tenor of the way that we look at this. But again, we will wait until it plays itself out, both in the courts and then from an NHL standpoint as well, because whether or not we feel like these type of things rise well above sports, as they do, there is also the NHLPA involved. There are processes that are in place for situations like this. The other part, just to clarify one aspect of this story, is that the alleged victim in this situation is putting forth the allegation that she went out to a bar, got maybe a little bit inebriated with a hockey player, went back to the hotel and had consensual sex, and then at which point other members of the World Hockey Team were invited in to engage in non-consensual sex. So that's where this stems from. That's what these players are being allegedly accused of, or they are being accused of it. And we'll see whether or not it plays itself out in the justice system if it comes to fruition that all of them are involved and to what levels each of these players are involved. Beyond that, I think you and I both agree that I am not the legal authority on any of these things. I recommend everybody go and read the New York Post, go and read the articles on reporting. There are special divisions inside of sports coverage that dedicate themselves to legal matters like this. I am not one of those individuals. Danny is not one of those individuals. We're going to wait when we hear something more and something definitive. We'll, of course, provide that update for the fan base. But beyond that, we're going to go ahead and take our step away, dial back into the New Jersey Devils, to how they're going to replace a player on the ice, which is something you have to do. And we're totally happy and fine with them needing to take that step, and what it looks like for this team going forward over the back half of the season. Anything that you just want to close out with it, Danny, before we wrap up this, again, heinous, disturbing, disgusting allegations that we hope are resolved quickly for everyone involved?
Yeah, and I think that the NHL and NHLPA are talking to all teams involved who had members that, did take those leave of absences. I'm sure there's things that they want to do in-house before a lot of the GMs make statements. I
Sure.
like that Danny Briere from the Flyers came out and he made, a statement after the Carter Hart situation. I'm sure Fitz is going to come out and address this. And I would assume, Adam, I think you're on the same page with me. It's after February 5th
Yep.
when the London, Ontario police come out and they talk about, the actual charges that came forward.
Yeah, again, just an absolutely disturbing situation. And I'll just say, you hate to hear that it's 2018 and now we're here in 2023, right? There are levels of this when it comes to the Canadian World Hockey Board of Governors, who all stepped down stemming from this situation. There is also the London, Ontario Police Department, who investigated and closed that case at the time and now have reopened it because the facts of those allegations became public. So there is this sense of, now all of a sudden there is a renewed pressure, and that is now forcing some people maybe to reopen the discussion, reopen the case, and look at this a little bit more seriously. So there's a lot of layers to this, and a lot of people that certainly should be held very accountable, even beyond the individuals involved. That's first and foremost. But when you see something, when you hear something, it needs to be treated a lot more seriously and a lot more judiciously than 5 years down the road reopening an investigation to finally get some clarity on what took place. That being the case, the next time that you see us, we will be talking about our midseason coverage of this team, looking back over the first half, giving out our grades for GM, head coach, and key players that we think have played well or maybe struggled along the way. And you know that you can find us on YouTube and all the social media platforms. Until then, I am Adam Armbrecht. That's Danny McDonough. We'll see you next time here on the Devil's Puck Luck Podcast.